Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and I'll be your guide on this journey from consciousness to cluelessness and back around again. Thanks for joining me for another Sunday solo episode. Whether it's Sunday night and you're getting ready for the week, Monday morning you're on your way to work, whatever day this podcast has found you, I'm really glad you're here. Before we get going, remember to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. It helps out so much if you are enjoying this podcast and you are a regular listener. Today on the podcast, I want to talk about this idea of celebrating your small wins. So I've only done this once before on the podcast, but it's actually, spoiler alert, Monday morning early. It's not Sunday when I normally release these episodes because I needed to go to bed last night. I had another day where I was just kind of struggling, and then I just gave in and I let myself rest, and it was really lovely, and I watched Harry Potter, and I just relaxed and gave myself some grace. I had been fighting a headache all day, which I don't normally get many headaches, and it got worse last night, and I hadn't recorded this week's solo episode yet, and I just thought, listen to your own advice. Go to bed, get up early and do it. It will be fine. And I did, and it is fine. And I know it sounds small, and I know it sounds silly, but I was really proud of myself. I was really proud of myself for not pushing, especially because I had a headache and I was in some pain, not pushing through that and making myself more miserable for what, really? And that just made me think about how I need to continue to celebrate those small wins, and so do you. As I've talked about on the podcast before, I am a self-proclaimed self-help junkie. Every self-help book or anything about kind of like how to improve your life, how to make your time more effective, and any of that, I'm like, yes, I love it. But sometimes I get into that spiral where I'm constantly looking at those kind of self-help ideas and not looking at all the things I've already done and celebrating the places I've already gotten to. And I think in the last year, I've really grown into this idea of taking care of myself in a more holistic way, and that includes my mental health in a way that it never has before. And I'm really proud of that because it has caused a lot of distress and a lot of burnout to ignore that in the past. So even for me to just say, I don't need to do this, I just need to go to bed, was huge. And it sounds small, but I'm really stinking proud of myself. And it was a really good reminder that I've done a lot of work. It's so hard to see that for yourself. It's easier to see for other people, or when somebody else tells you, like, wow, you're doing a great job. It might be hard to hear at first, depending on kind of where you're at and what headspace. But I had this moment with my therapist the other day, and it hit me just like how far I've come, how much time I've really dedicated to working on myself, working on how I show up in the world, working on how I show up in my relationships, being a little more self-evaluative. Evaluative? Is that a word? It is now. Evaluating myself more, and not in a critical way, but just saying, what role did I play? Taking some accountability in relationships, all of it. It just really hit me. She told me and kind of brought that to my attention, like, hey, you're doing a really great job. You've been working really hard. And it's hard to see when you're in it, but I did some time and let myself reflect, and I was like, God, hell yeah. I've been doing a lot of work. I've been doing a lot of self-discovery and diving into the shit that you avoid for years and admitting some things that you don't want to admit about yourself, and that's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to do that work. It's not done. It's never done, of course. But I do feel like I've really come a long way, and that was evident when I gave myself permission to just rest last night. And I'm really grateful for that. So why celebrate the small wins? Why not just keep pushing through and be like, yeah, great, good job? You need to celebrate every time you notice growth and change and positivity and the things that you've been working on, because it orientates your mind for more of those good things to show up. If you subscribe to any kind of law of attraction or manifesting or any of that, like attracts like. So if you are focusing on, wow, I've done a really good job, I've grown a lot, look at that moment where I just took care of myself, more of that will show up in your life. On the contrary, if you focus on how far you still need to go and you don't feel like you're making any progress and what does it matter? I'm just going to push through and record this episode and I'll be fine in the long run. If you focus on that, you're going to get more of that attitude and more of those instances will pop up in your head. So I am really thankful that I had a moment of clarity to say thank you. Because when we thank the universe, we show like, yeah, I noticed this good thing. I noticed this good pattern. I noticed this positivity. And it's not always going to be like that. I always have to say that because I'm worried that I'll record an episode and someone's going to be like, wow, things must be really great for you. It works out all the time. No, it doesn't. But it does more and more when that's what I focus on and that's what I pay attention to. And when I thank the universe for everything, it's cool because I've started doing this thing from Gabby Bernstein. If you've read a few of her books, I think I've talked about her before, but like The Universe Has Your Back and Super Attractor, they're great. But I've started doing this thing where, let's say I have a thought of negativity or an old pattern, or I start thinking about the things I'm manifesting and I start looking at the fact that I don't have them yet. I pause and then I say, thanks, universe, for reminding me how I don't want to think anymore. Thank you so much. That was a great reminder. And thank even those moments where you slip back into those old patterns and be like, yeah, okay, you know what that's a reminder of? How I don't want to live my life anymore. I don't want to focus on that negative shit anymore. So thank you, universe, for reminding me of what I don't want to focus on. That's really helpful because then I reorientate myself to what I do want to focus on, to the fact that I did give myself grace last night and I went to bed and I fell asleep and I slept so good, which is really saying something these days, and woke up and I got out of bed earlier than I have in a long time and felt really energized and really excited to record this episode and to talk about this because I was so proud of myself. So I want you to take a moment right now, either get a pen and paper, do it on your phone, do it in your mind if you're driving or something. But I want you to list 5 things. 5 things. I know it might seem like a lot. 5 things that are small wins that deserve your celebratory thoughts. So maybe it is you got up 5 minutes earlier this morning. Maybe it is you remembered to drink water first thing in the morning before you had your coffee and breakfast. Maybe it's you journaled for 5 minutes. Maybe it's just that you didn't freak out at your partner when they did something ridiculous because you remembered that doing it a different way helps. Whatever it is, I want you to take a few moments, and if you can't come up with 5 right away, that's okay. Maybe keep this list on your desk or on your phone and think about it this week. Notice the small wins and then focus on those, and notice how once you focus on it, they come more and more and more into your life because that's what you're giving your attention to. Now I feel energized to keep moving forward. Just talking about this has me excited because I gave myself space and I gave myself rest and I gave myself care. Pretty much guilt-free. I did have a moment last night where I was like, you promise Sunday solo episodes, and now you're breaking your promise. But you know what? it's okay. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. So celebrate your small wins this week. If you have any, I want to hear, go back to where I post this episode and comment your best small win from this week. Head over to Instagram, look for this post, episode 70. I can't believe that, saying that out loud. But comment on this post. Let me know what your best small win of the week was. I want to hear it. I want us to celebrate them for each other. Let me know. Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you're enjoying this podcast, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. If you want to help me get this into the ears of more listeners, send it to a friend, text it to a family member, share on social media. Whatever you can do really helps me out. If you haven't yet, head over to patreon.com/consciouslycarly and check out all the different things you can be a part of over there. And finally, if you haven't checked out the new Self-Love Reset course, head over to my website, consciouslycarly.com, and check it out. It's pretty great. Until next time.